Hey family, thank you for tuning into Our Roots podcast with Joseph Baba Ifa. We're only the strongest roots see the light, brought to you by 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 Candles and more. And if you haven't had the opportunity, please be sure to like, share this video, comment on it, subscribe to the channel, and also look into our membership program. What's up, Phil?
Yes, happy Sunday, everybody. Yeah, speaking
Happy
of membership
Sunday.
program, you know, we offer tons of perks for those who join as a member. It's literally a button right under this video. It says join. Takes 2 simple steps, and you get extra content, discounts on merch. You get a whole bunch of stuff. So, yeah, happy Sunday, man. So, what are we talking about today?
Today, we're actually going to start delving into Odu, which I'm really excited about. You know, we always offer the service of the Odu interpretation session at the 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 for people who want more information on their sign and more access to our library. So, you know, but we also wanted to be able to delve into each Odu as far as a surface level. And the first one we're going to start off with is the first sign in general, which is Baba Ifa, as it's known. So really excited about that because it's literally known as the Olodu, right? Or the king of Odu, the owner of Odu, the first Odu, or the Odu that is the leader, right? And we're going to delve into the various creation myths that are associated with this sign and all the other things that kind of come under it. So really excited about that. So when we look at Baba Ifa, the first thing that is peculiar about it and really sets it apart is that its name. So when you look at other Odus, you have Baba Meji, right? Or Baba Meji. You notice that the Meji comes after. But when we talk about Baba Ejiogbe, for some reason or another, Baba Ogbe Meji wasn't to the liking of the universe as far as how it was being expressed or sounding, and they put the Meji before the Ogbe. So you'll see some brothers say Baba Ifa Meji. Well, if that was the case, then there'd be 4 parallel lines rather than just 2. So it's just Baba Ifa, which means Baba Ejiogbe, or the Father that saved us twice, because it's known as the Odu of double salvation. And when you look at this, it's really awesome to see how the divine geometry or binary code kind of manifests, because when you look at this Odu, it's 2 parallel lines. Ifa is a double helix of binary code and spiritual DNA, where you have 8 symbols, right? Starting from top to bottom, right to left. Eyiogbe is literally 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1. And when you look at it, it almost looks like the railings on a path, or the median on a path. And that's why it literally says progress and organization is what helps us move forward. Because when we look not only at the format in which it's drawn, but the history behind it, they kind of reiterate each other. So in the beginning, you know, we've kind of spoken about the creation myth, but it really can't be overlooked in this video because it literally is the first story in the sign. In the beginning, there was one particle of light, right? And that particle of light was Olodumare. And within basically the cosmos, you had that one atom of light, right? Or what was to be. And you had the expansiveness of darkness, right? Black holes, emptiness, no sound, etc. And that represented 𝘃𝗵𝗍. So in the very beginning, Eyiogbe states that there were a couple things present. 𝘃𝗵𝗍 was present. Olodumare was present as the atom of light. And then apart from that, you had the concept of time. But another entity that we've spoken about being present in the beginning were the 𝗃𝗵𝗍𝗏𝗏𝗏, who were the energies that kind of protected the light from being consumed by the darkness, which is really ironic because everybody thinks about the 𝗃𝗵𝗍 and they're all negative and Ajogun and all these other things, but they were actually the ones who helped preserve the light so that it was able to expand and, you know, lead to creation. So the epic conversation happens, right, where they say Eyiogbe was representative of Olodumare, and then 𝘃𝗵𝗍 was represented by the Odu Baba Meji, technically being the oldest Odu, being that it manifested the absence of light. It's the Odu of the black hole, basically. And what occurred was the conversation happened where Olodumare, you know, basically told 𝘃𝗵𝗍, either we're going to continue like this forever or you're going to allow me to expand. Now, 𝘃𝗵𝗍 was very jealous with his territory. He was a glutton. He was a little bit, you know, greedy. etc. At least, as impression would seem. And, Eshu conceded. He said, it is getting a little boring up here. We're really not doing anything. We might as well, make something happen, which is really scary to a lot of human beings because, we're kind of this creature that's like, why are we here? We're really here for, the entertainment to a certain degree of higher powers and, to be in the pursuit of our own happiness. But that's really it. We're just killing time, which is what Eyiogbe says. So some people might not like that. But basically, Eyiogbe told Oyeku Meji, or Olodumare, the light, told Eshu, the darkness, I'm going to expand. I'm really not going to take up much space. But, we'll live in coexistence, and in harmony. And Eshu said, the only thing I ask is that of the people or creatures that are, basically created, I want to be the one to vet whether they deserve the blessings or the ashe or the grace that you're going to place upon them or not, right? I want to tempt them. I want to test them. I want to make sure they are who they say they are to you. And Olodumare was very appreciative of that, and he conceded, and it was a pretty flawless negotiation. And basically what happened at that point is the Big Bang, right? And basically that light imploded and ultimately exploded into what is the universe, the galaxies, and basically the occupation of the cosmos. There is an interesting point here that I want to bring up because I was speaking to a brother drummer recently who's Eyiogbe, and he said, he's a very talented guy. He really hits the skins, as we like to say. And he was like, I can't find anything in my sign on Ayang or, Anya, or the goddess that resides within the drum, or the bata drum in general. And, I actually had to put on my interpretive hat here and say, well, if you look at Eyiogbe was where sound first manifested. Because when the Big Bang happened, there was a sound, there was an explosion, there was a very deep bass tone that kind of reverbed across the universe, and that's Ayang. So she was there at the very beginning. Without her, we wouldn't even have that expansion. So that is interesting to see and hear because, some people hear the drum and they'll be like, oh, it's just a drum. We're literally talking about a deity who is a huge facilitator of creation, right? So just wanted to throw that in there. So when that happens, we have Earth and things like that. We have these balls of matter that are planets, stars, which are actually other suns and things like that. Maybe there were some aliens. I don't know. But when it's time to now begin occupying Earth, these deities in heaven, known as the Irumole, were set to start coming down. And the one that Olodumare kind of created in his image was a gentleman known as Orishanla. This is one version of many, so we're going to kind of delve into each of them.
It's like the multiverse.
Pretty much.
So many different versions.
A lot of people don't want to accept this, and Eyiogbe says this. If you look at the two lines, it really represents parallel dimensions and things like that. And I'm not a real big, I'm not out there like that, but it's just, it really is the truth, because when you look at it and you look at all these different stories and versions and things like that, the Western-minded person wants to say, hey, somebody must be wrong here, because it's all about right or wrong, black and white. Where back in the East, whether Africa and further on, it was all about the gray. They understood that multiple reincarnations, multiple existences, multiple planes, multiple frequencies. I mean, there was just no way around different things happening at different points, and we're all right. So some people, we have to let go of the rigidity of being correct. So when Obatala is basically created and commissioned, his original name or most known name was Orishanla, which means Orisha has arrived, being that he was the first Orisha, they say. He was told by Olodumare to descend upon Earth and basically begin the process of populating it. So obviously he accepted. How could you say no? And Obatala was given a couple items, and the first item was the famous chain. Right, and this chain, he basically used it to descend from heaven to earth, right above the water, because basically the earth was one big swamp or marsh, right? It was just dark, water, unknown, and the deity that was kind of holding all that down there was Olokun, right? But Olokun was, I guess, in the trenches or doing something else, maybe wasn't noticing this at the moment, being that, they might have an issue with Obatala kind of, line stepping and basically creating land matter, which he did. And the way he was able to do that, he dropped some earth or sand or what have you on basically the water. And after that, they say that he dropped a chameleon on it. And the chameleon placed upon it walked cautiously. That's why the chameleon walks till this day, because it was the first animal to ever touch earth. So he had to make sure, like, yo, is this sturdy, you know? So that's why in the 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗏, the agemo, or the chameleon, is seen as 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗲's first child to a certain degree. And 𝘃𝗶𝗹𝗏 gave him the gift of multiplication. That's why, you know, lizards and geckos and chameleons and things like that populate at such a high rate. And you'll look at one and you'll think it's another, because they also have the ability to change color. Right?
That's so cool.
Yeah, and that's why geckos are translucent as well, because 𝘃𝗶𝗹𝗏 was identified with the albino, or the afin as it's known, which is also the name of the obi that's thrown to him into Isese. All of those animals that are translucent and things like that, they all have to do with 𝘃𝗶𝗹𝗏, because they say 𝘃𝗶𝗹𝗏 had these same characteristics, you know. So when the chameleon goes down and, you know, he takes 16, you know, majestic steps, as it's known, 𝘃𝗶𝗹𝗏 had the confidence to now let down a hen. And this hen is mentioned in Eyiogbe, just like in Meji as well, being that these Odus were kind of the witness to all of this, even though they have different angles of perspective. They say Oragun was there as well in the formation of the cosmos. You know, they say it was a 5-toed hen, or a 𝗀𝗍𝗏 cinqueña, as it's known. And this hen, when it basically hit the ground, it started doing what hens do. It started digging and moving dirt and kind of scuffling it and whatnot. And it basically created 30% of, you know, basically land space, right? Where 70% was left water and 30% was left land. And 𝘃𝗶𝗹𝗏 was able to come down now with his faithful friend, the white cat, or 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗏, right? 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗏, or ojimbo, however you want to call it, which means white. And basically 𝘃𝗶𝗹𝗏 lived with the cat and the chameleon, and, you know, he started exploring. There's also a song in Eyiogbe that says, Inumawa olokun, Inumawa olokun, Inumawa olokun, Inumawa olokun, Osain tenteniteo, or tentenireo, depending on how people call it. It's basically talking about Inuawa olokun. It came from within Olokun, or the ocean. Osain tenteniteo, or tentenireo, which means Osain danced. So it speaks of when the herbs, or Osain, began coming out of the ocean onto land, you know, to begin expanding as well. The amphibians that some people say maybe were our ancestors, you know, you have theories and whatnot.
Yeah.
All of these different things, you know, began occurring, you know. And they even say, and it's really interesting, the amphibious concept, because 𝘃𝗶𝗹𝗏 literally divided himself to be able to procreate. So when you look at amphibians, they actually have this trait where, based on the population and what's most needed during basically the development within, I guess you can call it a pregnancy, or, you know, that birth process, they can change their gender. To be able to accommodate, like if there's too many men and we got a couple tadpoles coming in, they'll all come out women, you know, so that they can procreate and whatnot. And 𝘃𝗏𝗏 is kind of associated with them. He's in the 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗏𝗏, where a tectonic plate movement and the, you know, the disbursement of Pangea and all these things happen. He was associated with the toad, right, or the frog. So really interesting stuff. Another point I'll bring up, and this is more kind of an Meji, but it's over here because they were all there. But Eyiogbe is the one who kind of got the official okay to talk about it. Was originally, when we look at like scientific data and things like that, Pangea, right, the one continent, originally, the outline of it, when you take it out of the template and put it on its own, it looks like a hen. And
Wait, for real?
Yeah, this is public knowledge. Like if you search this, you know, scientists have spoken about it and everything. And it's ironic because it says, you know, in Eyiogbe, and this is thousands of years before any of these tools were manifested technologically or modernly, right? It says that the animal that actually led to land disbursement or land matter and mass was a hen. So it's just really ironic stuff, but they knew this thousands and thousands of years ago. I mean, what we've been able to recollect and what I've been able to hear from various sources, originally Ifa was thought to be 5,000 years old, 10,000 years old. There's remnants that they're even carbon dating back 50,000 years old. So from the dawn of man, because we haven't been here actually that long. I think 50,000 years, less than 60,000, I think. So, you know, it really is comforting, but it's also awe-inspiring because it lets you know we come from somewhere and we have recollection of it somehow. So that's the first part of it. Now, there's another part that when 𝗶𝗸𝗏 begins, you know, basically dimorphing and separating from himself, you know, they say that 𝗶𝗸𝗏 was the top part of the calabash, right? Or the 𝗃𝗏𝗍 as it's known, when he was descending from earth to heaven. And they say that the bottom part, or earth itself, was 𝗃𝗲𝗏, right? A feminine energy that when they combined, you know, basically creation occurred. And this can be seen in a bunch of different expressions. Like the orishas originally were known as 𝗃𝗏𝗍𝗁, which are basically the energies of the light that reside within the calabash, right? So that's why all the calabashes in Ifa have a lid. When you look at a dafa occurring as well, you see the two hands meeting, heaven and earth converging upon each other. You know, it's once again a reiteration of that. So, you know, if you look at earth being a feminine energy, like Eyiogbe states, and you look at 𝗶𝗸𝗏 being masculine, or the sky kind of creating that combustion and oxygen or breathing life, that unification is what really facilitated life based on his descension and earth receiving him. So they say that, you know, his wife's name was 𝗃𝗲𝗏, but you have other versions where his wife's name was 𝗀𝗻𝗄. Some people say 𝗀𝗻𝗏, which I'm not a huge fan of, because in the story, in the same story, it says 𝗀𝗻𝗏 was his daughter. So I'm not a huge fan of that one, but hey, etc. So here's where things get a little bit, you know, convoluted, is that, you know, some people say that 𝗶𝗸𝗏, when he descended upon earth, he established it as Ife, right? And from a worldly standpoint, they say that a gentleman named 𝗃𝗏𝗏, who came from the east symbolically, probably from Benin, whether it was the country or, you know, the section of 𝗃𝗏𝗍𝗲, that's mentioned quite a bit now, came and conquered 𝗶𝗸𝗏 and the priests of 𝗶𝗸𝗏. And where 𝗃𝗏𝗏, who took on the name 𝗃𝗏𝗏 to kind of, you know, build upon the concept of 𝗃𝗏𝗏 being the new leader there, basically took over. And even though he didn't slaughter all the 𝗶𝗸𝗏 priests and all these other things, because he was a smart man, he knew better than to touch religion like all the great conquerors did or did not. He left that there and built upon it to be able to garner that support, even though they had basically dominated Ife. So that's one version there in the beginning that Eyiogbe talks about. And that's why, if you notice, 𝗶𝗸𝗏 and 𝗃𝗏𝗏 have a very, you know, tumultuous relationship, because at least in this version, 𝗃𝗏𝗏 came and dominated, you know, basically Yoruba land and took it for himself, you know, where he left 𝗶𝗸𝗏 in position, but who was actually running things was 𝗃𝗏𝗏. Now, there's another version where, you know, it was actually 𝗃𝗏𝗏 who came down from heaven, and they say he descended upon the sacred palm tree of 𝗃𝗍𝗄, and basically from there, there's versions where he had one son named 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗏 that procreated and created all the other, you know, descendants, or that 𝗃𝗏𝗏 had 16 sons, with 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗏 being the eldest. Other versions say it was Orunmila. So it gets very convoluted, but basically all of 𝗃𝗏𝗏's descendants became the 16 kings of the original 16 lands of Yoruba land, right? Ife, etc., the land of Oragun, all of the different ones that are mentioned, and each of them, till this day, are actually the descendants of 𝗃𝗏𝗏. Really? So, like, for example, the Alafin of Oyo is the actual blood descendant of 𝗃𝗏𝗏 and Shango and all those people that come from that royal lineage. The gentleman in Ife, who is the Onife, in Mayodu of Esekangola, was identified as the spiritual king, being that that word has loose translations and connotations to the basically meaning loosely he who is in need, because it says that that was 𝗃𝗏𝗏's adopted son who took over when Orunmila or Shango, or however you want to look at it, went to conquer Oyo, or basically establish Oyo, because he was more focused on, you know, war and things like that rather than politics and being regal, right? So you have all of these different versions, especially from a terrestrial standpoint. But what situations also came from this? Going back a little bit, when 𝗶𝗸𝗏 got here, he got to work, right? You have the one where he split in half and basically procreated with himself. That's why 𝗶𝗸𝗏 is androgynous, you know, male and female paths. But then you have a version where he basically created humankind, right? And it's ironic because originally it was thought to be a collaboration where basically 𝗶𝗸𝗍 got the materials to be able to create all these human beings from 𝗲𝗲𝗹 and Ogun, right? So between the mud and the iron and all the things he was using to construct the body, being that he didn't want to give them any credit, he was like, just give me the materials, I'll do it on my own. And because of it, he became very exhausted. And with that, he became exhausted. He became thirsty. He said, let me have a drink, you know what I'm saying, to continue my work. But he drank a little too much palm wine, or emu, as it's known. And Olodumare, seeing 𝗶𝗸𝗍 sleeping and seeing the figures, he had so much faith in 𝗶𝗸𝗍 that he just blew life into them, or the sacred breath known as 𝗀𝗍𝗋. And when he did that, 𝗶𝗸𝗍 didn't get the chance, based on his actions, to finish the body in a way where it was going to create perfect human beings. You know, that's why all of us here on Earth, to some degree, have some form of imperfection. You know, maybe one of our bones could be longer, or maybe, you know, we have situations where it's difficult for us to focus. Like, everybody has something wrong with them.
Yep.
And that's why 𝗶𝗸𝗍 is seen as the father, and anybody that has anything that makes life challenging, you know, ultimately resides within the realm of 𝗶𝗸𝗍, because when that happened, and he went through such a huge embarrassment because of it, he had to now cede his role to 𝗲𝗲𝗹 and Ogun, specifically 𝗲𝗲𝗹, to finish, right? Some people say 𝗶𝗸𝗍 fell drunk and didn't finish, and then 𝗲𝗲𝗹 was the one who finished, right? To finish the rest of the population so that, you know, it could improve, right? And because of this, 𝗲𝗲𝗹 and Eyiogbe became known as 𝗀𝗏𝗿𝗍, which basically is the king of earth, whether it was through the domination of the 𝗶𝗸𝗍 clan in Ife, or, you know, the finishing of the divine work of constructing humanity. He actually, you know, kind of superseded 𝗶𝗸𝗍 and replaced them. Even though 𝗶𝗸𝗍 always had the symbolicness of being above everybody, or having that path, you know, kind of manifesting the cloud and things like that, Father Sky, 𝗲𝗲𝗹 was the one with the power. And 𝗶𝗸𝗍 knew it. So they always had that frustration with each other, because it was supposed to be 𝗶𝗸𝗍's role, but he got a little tipsy, right?
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So that's basically the creation myth in a nutshell to a certain degree. But then there's another angle as well. And the continuation of this can be found in the Odu of Ogbe or Ogbe Ori Ogunda. Basically,
Hold on, before you continue though.
yes, sir.
So you said that there's different variations of the same story.
Oh, there's so many. There's so many. Like, I'm just.
Is this the one, the most popular one that you're saying?
Pretty much, like the most popular ones. Yeah, because the real debate in Eyiogbe, especially from a you know, a theological standpoint, is who really made it happen. Did 𝗲𝗲𝗹 come down first, or was it 𝗶𝗸𝗍? And the reason they've never been able to come to a conclusion on that from a epicenter standpoint in Ife is because there's frustration. You know, from one angle, you know, the 𝗶𝗸𝗍 priests might not want to give the priest of 𝗲𝗲𝗹 that, you know, accolade, because then it's basically saying our guy failed. From another standpoint, you know, the 𝗲𝗲𝗹 guys might not want to give 𝗶𝗸𝗍 that accolade, because that means 𝗲𝗲𝗹 didn't actually conquer Ife. He just came and resided, you know, and was 𝗶𝗸𝗍's younger brother. So we're never going to get a clear answer, because no one's going to cede that, because at the end of the day, it's about numbers, it's about prosperity, all of these different things. But there's various Odus that speak of both versions. So maybe in this lifetime, 𝗶𝗸𝗍 won. Maybe in this line, 𝗲𝗲𝗹 won. Like, it's a constant back and forth. But both are seen as legitimate, you know, and they both basically reside within this sign. And it kind of goes back to the original divine geometry of it all, because one line could represent 𝗲𝗲𝗹 and one line could represent 𝗶𝗸𝗍, parallel paths that never met again. Like, they never really found a common ground. Now that creation has happened and all these other things, life is moving on, etc. The Odu of Eyiogbe, you know, speaks of literally everything. There's this joke within the Ifa community, especially us, the Babalawo, when we don't know when or what sign something comes from, we basically say, oh, that's Eyiogbe. And we're technically not wrong. But, you know, for something to be legitimate within Ifa, it has to be within at least 3 signs, so we always want to find the other 2. But there's so much information here. Eyiogbe is the largest sign. It has more verses than any other sign. you know, thousands, I would say. They say that the verse that has, or the sign that has the most verses besides Eyiogbe, especially outside of the Mejis or the divine twins, is 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗲 or 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗲, which was Eyiogbe's preferred son and first son, some people say. So just to understand the magnitude of the sign that we're dealing with, and basically forms the constructs of our spirituality, right? So the most famous, you know, saying within Eyiogbe is, or the thing about Eyiogbe is the head, right? So going back to what I was going to say, there's another part when it comes to destiny that Eyiogbe has a huge role with. And that part is basically the creation of the human body once again. So when someone is basically next in line to become someone, the first thing that happens is that their body's constructed from the neck down by Ogun and by Oduduwa. Ogun representing the iron, Oduduwa representing the clay. And the clay within African mythology represents human flesh, right? Because they say that, albeit a little, you know, gruesome somewhat, when we begin to decompose, we turn white and things like that. That's why the clay, that's why we say we go back to the earth, because we end up looking like clay again. So when they construct you from the toes to the neck, you are thrust into the house of Obatala, Ijala, as is known, or Ayala. And with a headless body, you basically select a head blindly, because Ayala's job is basically to construct heads all day, out of clay, they say. And the reason you do it blindly is because if that was the case, everybody would pick the destiny that, and you know, you lived longer, you had a beautiful, you know, loving spouse, you made the most money, etc. Everybody would pick a perfect life. So to keep it fair, you go in blind, right? This is all found in one of Eyiogbe's children, which is Obeyono, or Obeogunda, right? But then once you pick a head and you put it on your shoulders, you're thrust in front of your creator and you kneel. And this concept is in the Odu of Obedi. And what ends up happening is Olodumare, based on your destiny, asks you, what do you want to be or do? And what you basically say is whatever you want at that moment, once your consciousness has been formed and you can have an idea of things. But based on your destiny, Olodumare says, yeah, you can be that. Let's say you want to be, I don't know, a movie star. He says you could be that, but based on your destiny to be able to get there, you have to, you know, go through these situations and you have to make these offerings. And they also ask you, you know, what do you offer as tribute? So basically you might say, well, I'll give a ram to Shango, I'll give an elephant to the earth, and, you know, 2 doves to the, you know, I don't know, to Eshu. And the person that's writing all of this down is a gentleman known as Ibikeji Olodumare Elerikpin, which is another title for Orunmila, he who sits to the right of Olodumare or next to Olodumare, and is the witness of destiny. And he basically starts compiling all of the things you're saying and doing within your divine sheet or history, or ita as it's known. And an Odu is not necessarily selected for you. You select your Odu kind of actually when you select your head. And all of that is basically compiled by Orula and written down. The compatible Orisha is identified for you as well as your spirit guides, or the ones who are going to help you accomplish your destiny, basically risking themselves, you know, and taking a bet on you being able to do it. Because if you don't fulfill your destiny, those same spirits that came to help you, they don't get the credit. Ooh. So they have to kind of go through another cycle with you. So that's why, you know, reincarnation is so real. Because if we don't do what we're meant to do here, we have to keep coming back and back and back and back. Like the Odu Babao di Meji, you know, says it. Orunmila lived 16 lives before he was able to get it right. So that's kind of scary.
But how do we know? How do we know our purpose, since we don't have like a recollection of what we did in a previous life?
Here we go. So at that moment, once your Odu is identified, Orishas, Eguns, debts, all of these different things, Ori, they basically say bye-bye. And at that moment, you're born. And the reason you don't remember anything is because the amniotic fluid within your mother's stomach is known as 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗲, which means the water of forgetfulness. And the reason we're born crying is because we just got kicked out of paradise, you know. We feel pain from the moment we enter the world. I mean, just to, you know, enact life, they got to spank us on the butt, you know. So at that moment, literally life is born of pain, and we feel pain throughout life until we ultimately leave. This plane is characterized by pain. My wife has told me of dreams she's had, with her father, and other people, spiritists and mediums that I've spoken to have told me that the spirits that they've spoken to have made it very clear that this plane is the least advanced. We're the ones that feel pain and need. All the other ones do not. So we wonder why, our ancestral extraterrestrial beings don't want to interact with us. We wonder why the spirits that have been able to make it to a certain echelon of heaven, as it's known, don't want to come back because, all we feel here is pain. Now, because of pain, we can feel joy. We can know that difference. But, life is characterized by pain, and possibly and hopefully some very amazing moments of joy. But, from the very beginning, we're reminded of that. And the reason we come here is to feel pain, because without pain, we don't elevate. We're paying for celestial debts and karmas that we can't even remember. But what happens then, right? We forgot what we wrote. We forgot what we asked for. So what happens in Nigeria a couple thousand years ago? At 7 days old for women or 9 days old for men, 7 being, the number of creation, and 9 being the number of egung or death, being that men, we destroy and women create. You're taken to the Babalawo, right? The representative of Orunmila on earth, and they perform a ceremony known as Esentaye Loruko, right? Or 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗏, which basically means I put my feet on the ground and I get a name. And they basically give you the hand of Ifa or Isefa, where Orunmila is provided to you in some cases, but they identify your Odu. They give you your name. They identify taboos and things like that so that the parents know how to raise the child and they know what the child was meant for. That way they can start basically grooming them for said profession or thing. So, for example, in the information I give to my initiates, it'll have recommended professions and things like that. Some people have already been on the right path. They're just aligned still, and they have great intuition. Some people are a little more distanced from their spiritual acumen, so we have to remind them, or some people have made very drastic changes. But when they have followed what Orunmila has said to the T, things have gone fabulously. I've had people change their whole lives based on their hand of Ifa.
Really?
Completely.
How long does that normally take?
The hand of Ifa?
Yeah.
72 hours with us. Any 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗁, it can be as short as 4 to 6 hours, I've seen. Or it can be as long as 4 days or even further. Like the 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗏, I believe, has an SFA that was shared with me where Oduduwa took 4 days, or was it Orunmila took 4 days to initiate Oduduwa's family, the royal family, in the hand of Ifa, or vice versa. But I think Orunmila initiated Oduduwa and his family. So it really is however long, the officiating priest wants it to be, or based on the Odu. Sometimes the Odu will be like they need to be in ceremonial, enclosure for 7 days, 21 days. But that's more seen in 𝘃𝗶𝗃𝗏. Ours is a little more standardized, where the hand of Ifa is 3 days, 72 hours, and like our big initiations are usually 7 days. Like the Odu Osa Meji says for Orisha, or Baba Oragung says for Ifa. But within the hand of Ifa, basically sacrifices are made, things are, prepared, and ultimately it ends in Ita, which was the same thing that Orunmila wrote down in heaven. And via the Babalawo and the sacred seeds of 𝗃𝗃, which also were born in the Odu of Ejiogbe, were able to reveal destiny in Ori via Orunmila. And with that information, ideally, we should live the best life possible. So, and mind you, it provides a lot of job security to someone like myself. I don't know. But everyone should receive hand of Ifa. Eyiogbe says this. So when you look at some people who have the concept of, no, hand of Ifa is only if you get sick, or you don't need that till later, Orula is optional. Orunmila is the first step in the whole religion. Completely. No other Orisha is able to perform that task. Like even the people that go through Orisha initiation and they go through their Erindi Logun divination, it basically will or should reiterate what Orunmila said in the beginning. The Ita of Orisha, which was born in Eyiogbe as well, begins in the hand of Ifa, which was born in Eyiogbe as well. So literally, if we go back to the first scripture, the first context we have of any of this, it's already laying out the path and framework to have a successful spiritual career and life. And all of this is in the Odu of Eyiogbe. And the interesting thing is destiny, which is revealed in the hand of Ifa, has its seat right here, within our head, or Ori as it's known, which is the personal extension of Olodumare, or our creator, in all of us. That's why sometimes it's referred to as 𝗿𝗲𝗍. And I think this is a great way to kind of bring this whole epic thing full circle in steps, because in this Odu was where the head didn't have a body or a throne or a place to sit. It would kind of just roll around and things like that. And, you know, it was kind of tired of it. Another thing is there was this huge debate as to who would be able to help Ori, or the head, find its destiny, right? And all of the other Orishas were failing. That's why Orunmila has to come first, because all the other Orishas tried to reveal Ori and align Ori, and none of them were having any luck, from 𝗃𝗏𝗏 all the way down to whoever. So Ori somehow finds itself within Orunmila's home. It rolls onto the Babalawo's mat, and divination is done for Ori, where Baba Ejiogbe is revealed, where Ifa told Ori that it needed to go through a ceremonial process that, you know, can be seen till this day, depending on, you know, what you've been able to see. And because of it, it speaks of, you know, the symbolism of an Ogbe opening up, and the 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗲 is in Eyiogbe as well. And when it opened up, it was this big boom, to the point where everybody came running to the site, which was in Orunmila's home. And when that occurred, Ori was able, via 𝗵𝗶 and its consecration, facilitated by Orunmila, to sit on its throne, which was ultimately the neck, or the atlas joint. It literally sat on the seat of creation. And Ori, because of this, always thanked Orunmila and said, the first and only person that will fully reveal me will be Orunmila, because no one else was able to. And all of this is in the Odu of Baba Ifa, which the concept of Eyiogbe means head, ultimately. It's the great consecration of Ori was here. The Ori icon, all of it is here. So basically, going all the way back to the beginning, creation led to Orunmila's doorstep. So once now Ori has situated on its place of the body, and all the body parts wanted to be around it and be governed by him, you know, there's other things that occurred or transpired afterwards. So Orunmila, now being the great revealer of Ori, you know, had some reputation where he was kind of brought into this sacred fraternity of the Mejis, who were the original 16 signs, right? And Ejiogbe, technically, even with all of this literature and whatnot, in one of his lifetimes or reincarnations, he was actually the 16th Meji in as far as order, right? And there was this big reunion that was going to happen. Some people say in Olodumare's house, some people say in Obatala's house, where they were all invited to this great banquet that was going to occur. And Eyiogbe, being very sound in Ifa and very astute, performed Dafa to see what was going to happen, where his own Odu of Eyiogbe was revealed, where Ifa told him to perform sacrifice before going to Olodumare or Obatala's home. So he did so, but because of it, he was going to arrive late, and the other 15 Mejis walked by his house and said, "You're doing 𝗵𝗶 before going to eat? You're crazy." And they all laughed at him and jeered at him and whatnot. They bullied him. And he didn't listen to them. He just did what Orunmila said. So when he's on his way now to head to Olodumare's house or Obatala's house, what have you, or Olofing, we'll just say Olofing for the story's sake, 𝗀𝗏 meets him on the path and says, hey, I heard you're going over there. He's like, yeah. He said, well, when you go over there, go in through the back door. Don't go in through the front door. And he was like, but they told me that it's in the banquet that's by the front door. And 𝗀𝗏 was like, listen to me. And he was like, okay. So when Eyiogbe got there, you know, the banquet had already happened. People had already eaten. No one waited for him. They're like, he's going to eat last anyway. You know, who cares? And they actually threw out the head of the fish that was on the table. That's why in Eyiogbe, this song was born. Which means through the fresh fish we will be protected, and all negativity will, you know, go away from us. Orunmila, you know, is the owner of the fish. So when Eyiogbe or Orunmila goes in through the back door, which actually led into basically the kitchen, It always reminds me of the movie Belly when DMX goes to visit Ox and he goes into the back door and
yeah, his eyes are glowing.
Yeah, and he's like, and he's like, oh my God, he's over there in Jamaica and in Jamaica, Queens, and he's like, this is ridiculous. But he goes in through the back door and that's the kitchen where all the attendants were. It always makes me think about that scene. And when Eyiogbe went in through the back door, which led into the kitchen and the maid quarters, he realized that there was no food left, but he was hungry and he didn't want to insult and things like that. So he actually started eating the head of the fish out of the garbage. And Olofing actually came into the kitchen and he said, what are you doing? He said, well, I got here late. I did 𝗵𝗸𝗶 and things like that. I wanted to come to your house clean. And he said, yeah, but why are you eating that? He said, that's what they left me.
Oh my gosh.
And when Eyiogbe saw that, he said, well, you're it. And Eyiogbe was like, what do you mean? He said, that was the trick. I wanted to see who was going to eat the head to become the head and sit at the head. And he said, just like that, you're it. And he went back in with Eyiogbe, and he sat Eyiogbe at the head of the table with the fish. And all of the other Meis were so envious and seething with jealousy. But through his humility, through his good character and conduct, which also manifested here, 𝗃𝗶𝗸𝗲, which is one of the pillars of our faith, he was able to become king of kings, the Olodu, as it's known, where Olofing said, head you eat, head you will be. And that's how the youngest Meji of Eyiogbe ended up becoming not only the head of the table, the head of the Mejis, but he who basically facilitated creation until this day. When you see him, it's automatic respect. When Eyiogbe comes out, all the Babalawos have to hit the floor and pray. That's how much, how grand it is.
Really?
Yeah. There's other versions of the story where Eyiogbe made it and they were sitting down and he sat at the table and the only thing left for him was the fish and he ate the fish and then Olofing came out and said, well, you win. There's another version where it was Obatalà's home and Eyiogbe, before going to Olofing's house, actually went through initiation and showed up in the white cloth and stood on the hill ceremonially, they say, and Obatalà said, that's our guy. So he basically, the story or the moral is him being obedient and listening to Ifa is what put him in the exalted position that he is till this day.
Faith.
Absolutely. And humility, because I think faith is driven by humility. To be able to have faith in something, you have to humble yourself to the point of completely relinquishing control. And that takes a lot of self-confidence. And I think that's a huge key nowadays when, you see a lot of people that they don't want to have faith or they don't want to listen or they don't want to be guided and whatnot. Without it, there can be no growth because it goes right back to the first sign in the whole religion. The basis of our whole religion is this Odu that without it, you'll never grow. Eyiogbe had to literally go from zero to the top, through his humility and listening to Orunmila, no matter how embarrassing it was, no matter how unbecoming it was. Someone such as myself, when I started in Ifa, my job was to mop floors, and I was the best floor mopper in the world. I went through so much fabuloso in Creolina. My godfather would come into the garage and his eyes would start watering. He's like, holy crap, this is clean, So, it goes right back to the beginning of our religion. To be able to grow within Ifa, we have to start at the bottom. That's why Eyiogbe, in the moral code and ethic of Ifa, one of the proverbs is, the ladder of Ifa will take the Babalawo where he's meant to be based on his sacrifice and good character. So you have people that want to immediately go to the top of the ladder. They want to be sitting on the roof. They don't understand that to be able to get there, you have to learn how to build a ladder. You have to actually build the ladder. You have to test the ladder. You have to go up the ladder. You have to build, even before all that, you got to build the house. So all of these concepts are here, and that's why it's seen as the first grain of sand that built a globe, Another celestial occurrence that happened here, which is another great way to bring things back full circle. Orunmila, and we've said this one before, but it's just so key. The Odu of Eyiogbe says, the friends of Eshu feed him, his enemies are the ones who let him starve. And in Eyiogbe, when the Orishas were going to start coming down from heaven to earth, they were all told to perform sacrifice. They all went for divination, but none of them completed the sacrifice. So none of them were coming back. So it was presumed that they were dying, right? Or they were failing. And Orunmila was the last one to go down. And when he went to the celestial awos for divination, Eyiogbe was revealed, where Ifa told him to perform sacrifice with a rooster and to go from heaven to earth with it and to feed it to the first person he met or saw. When he arrived on earth, which was presumably Ife, he arrived at a four corners very, very quickly. And he saw a gentleman sitting right smack dab in the middle of it. And before saying hello or anything like that, he yanked the rooster's head off and he started feeding the thing, who opened his mouth and received it. And, you know, after that, they had a conversation. And, you know, the guy looked at him and said, "Who are you?" He said, "My name is Orunmila. You know, I've come to be a Babalawo here on earth." And he said, "Oh, I thought it was you because, you know, your family, all of your siblings, when they came down, they didn't give me the rooster. They pursued money and things like that when, you know, it was a temptation that I provided them. And because of it, all of them died. I killed all of them. So good for you that you listened." And Orunmila was like, "Well, where do we go from here?" He said, "Well, being that you fed me, you're my friend, right? Let's stick together and I'll bring you prosperity. People are going to need help. And with me, you'll win. So keep feeding me, keep taking care of me, and you'll be remembered forever." And till this day, eons later, we're still talking about these guys. So, you know, Eyiogbe goes all the way back to the beginning. Eshu here actually taught Orunmila how to manipulate after this occurrence happened, and he fulfilled his debt celestially to Eshu. Eshu actually taught Orunmila how to manipulate the 16 seeds of 𝗃𝗀𝗃, right? And because of it, he was able to begin to perform Dafa and his Ifa practice. And they say that Eyiogbe practiced so much Ifa that he worked himself to death.
Really?
Yeah, because when he left heaven, he promised, like we all promised, you know, the oath of Ifa was born in Eyiogbe, where we promised to save humanity, even though humanity is our worst enemy. And when he got down there, he started performing Ifa practice for free, because that's how he interpreted it. He's like, if I'm helping these people, I can't charge them. Mm-hmm. This was a big issue because it literally imploded the market. You know, it's like when Rockefeller, you know, dropped gas by 10 cents and no one could keep up. So the other Meji became very angry with him and started going back to heaven and telling their father, "Hey, this guy's doing work better than us. He's better at what he does than us. And then apart from that, he's not charging anything. So no one comes and visits us. We have no way of feeding our families. Our orishas are going dry." And 𝗀𝗲𝗻𝗃 said, "We have a huge issue." And they say that Eyiogbe fell asleep and 𝗀𝗲𝗻𝗃 called him to heaven in his sleep. He basically died in his sleep. And when he was in front of his creator, he said, "I think I'm here a little early." And 𝗀𝗲𝗻𝗃 said, "Yeah, but the reason being is because of what you're doing." And Eyiogbe said, "Well, didn't you want me to save Earth and help people?" He said, "Yeah, but people have to help themselves if they want help from you, you know? Ayúdate y Dios te ayudaré. That's what my grandmother would say. Help yourself and God will help you. You know, God helps those who help themselves, right?" So when he heard that, he reincarnated and he started charging. So the interesting thing about this Odu, and I'll go ahead and share this now, is this is actually my Odu of Ita. So when you perform Ifa as an Afro-Cuban Lukumi Babalawo, we're given 3 signs. The main sign, which is who I am, 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗏, is ultimately the umbrella that all the other ones fall under. The other ones are kind of conversations. But my Odu of Ita is Baba Ifa. And I'll never forget, you know, it was really wonderful because my grandfather Kata, who was the one who directed the Ifa, he's Eyiogbe as well. And he had very nice words and kind words. A couple of the gentlemen in my lineage as well have Eyiogbe and Ita, so it was a nice moment of communion between us. But I'll never forget, there was a story about a brother, and I'll bring it full circle with this. There was a story about a brother who went to visit 𝗿𝗏𝗵𝗏, who was the student of Panchito Febles, who was Miguel Febles' older brother. And if you know the Febleses, you know the history about them.
Yeah.
And when this brother went to visit 𝗿𝗏𝗵, right, who unfortunately has transitioned within the last 2 years or something like that, I never got a chance to sit down with him, but just a really incredible guy from what I heard. He asked him, because the gentleman that went to go visit him was Eyiogbe, and he asked 𝗿𝗏𝗵, he said, "𝗿𝗏𝗵, tell me something I haven't heard about Eyiogbe before." And he said, Eyiogbe, he said, Miguel Febles used to say one thing when Eyiogbe came out. He said, organization. He said if Eyiogbe can learn how to organize himself and understand that even $20 has its distribution and allocation, he'll always be successful. And that's actually a proverb in Eyiogbe. Even $20 has its, you know, its organization, right? And all of the Eyigbes that I've met that are successful, it's because they're incredibly organized. Especially people like 𝗀𝗲𝗃𝗃. 𝗀𝗃𝗃 is somebody that, you know, he might direct 2 Ifas a month over there. And, you know, the organization and precision that that man works with is unparalleled. And I think that's what's taken him to be such a successful 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲, right? Just like all of the Eyigbes that I've met that are successful as well, you know, various oriates and things like that. But I mention him because, you know, he was really an inspiration. He was really somebody that when he directed my Ifa, he provided a glamour and a precision that I'd never seen before in any practice of Ifa. He was literally the teacher of, you know, my godfather, my uncle, all of these gentlemen. You know, it's really a thing. I'll never forget when I finished my 𝘃𝗍𝗃, or the last day where they beat you down with the sticks. I'll never forget, he told me when I came out the room and I was sitting with him, he said, you know, we come from a line of 𝗃𝗶𝗸𝗲s. All of us direct. So a lot is expected of you. And, you know, I'll never forget saying, I guess I have to do that. And luckily, I was able to. So, you know, may Eyiogbe bless him wherever he is. So, guys, that's Baba Eyiogbe. Wonderful Odu. We barely scratched the surface.
I was just about to say that.
We barely scratched the surface because the thing is, Eyiogbe has so much of a celestial backstory. Before you actually get into the works of Orunmila on Earth, like, we have to go through an hour epic tale, right? But definitely there might be a part 2, you know, but this is an Odu. If you are Baba Eyiogbe in your hand of Ifa, congratulations. I've been able to initiate a couple. But if you want more information and more, you know, focus on your specific prophecy and things like that, the Odu interpretation session is available. I'll provide you all the information I have on Eyiogbe. I hope you have a lot of space on your phone or computer. And that way you can begin your independent study, because it is the most complex sign that anyone will ever study in Ifa. It will be the most difficult sign for any person to be able to interpret, because there's so much information. That's why you have to lean on the prophecy. So for your specific Odu interpretation for Eyiogbe, be sure to reach out to us. What do you think, Phil?
Definitely needs a part 2.
Yeah, sure.
Definitely needs a part 2.
Yeah.
It's like, I learn something new, honestly, every day. Like, every
Nice.
day you say something, because we've been doing this almost 2 years now.
Yeah.
And
It never ends.
No.
Ifa never ends.
And it's what I really like, though, is that you're not looking at any notes.
Oh, God, no, bro.
You don't have a teleprompter.
No, I
You're
haven't
not reading out
prepared.
of a book.
It's so funny because it's like before we started recording right now, you're like, do you need your notes? And when you looked at it, it's literally just the schedule. Like, we have this video, we're doing it this time, a bunch of like, but my training, you know, coming from that lineage, my training was so intense and so rigorous and so excruciating. You know, I would say that my elders were, I don't know, they used to like us to feel pain. And I thank God for that, because when you go into the gym, you don't want a trainer that's going to, you know, be squirting the protein in your mouth and, you know, has the AC nice and you're doing moderate cardio. You want somebody that is going to kill you.
Yeah,
right?
you don't learn anything.
I want, you know, they literally said, we are going to take your mind to the brink of explosion. You are going to learn whether you want to learn or not. And that was what it was. We used to study. We used to have hand of Ifas multiple times a week. We were directing Ifas multiple times a week. They used to just literally plop like 100 pages in front of me. They'd be like, you need to have this down by, you know, you need to have the majority of this down by this weekend. You know, you need to have read this. I need responses. I need dissertations. Our lineage came from a pedigree that was really old school. Like, all the way back to Miguel, all the way back, because Miguel Febles and his brother were taught by Africans. You know, their father was a man of means, Ramon Feble Betois, and, you know, that pedigree just came all the way down, because that gentleman, they say that, you know, that whole library, they had basically digested it. You know, they've been studying Ifa since they were 9, so.
Wow.
They weren't playing, especially with guys like us who were coming in afterwards. They were like, if you want to be around us, you know, you have to be prepared, because this is a lot more than a bracelet and some sunglasses. You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's a perfect segue, because I wish we should have some bracelets and sunglasses on the store.
Yes, sir.
But if you want some discounts,
Yeah.
a better way to get that would be
That was flawless, Phil.
to join. Hey, I got years, years and years in the radio. I'm a segue king there.
My man.
Drop a like if you guys like that segue.
Yeah.
Anyway, join our VIP program or any of our tiers. You get content. You get discounts on merch. Extra shows that are just for you. You know, we have live shows just for our VIPs. We have live shows for all of our members. And, you know, you get access to the episodes early. That's a huge thing.
Get in there, guys, for sure. A lot of great stuff.
Yep. So we're going to show some love to the people that show love to you, starting with the VIPs.
Shout
we
outs.
got Junior Nenez celebrating 17 months.
Oh, my godson, Junior. Bendiciones, mi hija.
Yep.
Boru.
We got Laja Rocks, another 17 months.
Gee, OG.
Yep. We got Jabri Bambri,
Oh.
17 months as well.
Jabri, 𝗶𝗸𝗶𝗶𝗲, brother.
Yeah, we got Alyssa Statler celebrating 14 months. These
Thank
are the
you, Alyssa.
OG VIPs.
It's beautiful.
Yes, we need to have a video chat just with them.
Yeah, definitely. Anybody over a year, for sure.
Yeah. All right, celebrating the super fans. We got Lovely K, 16 months.
Thank you.
We got Ruben, 12 months.
Sheesh.
Obviously, Ogunbi is definitely an OG.
Oh, my brother, Boruboya.
And celebrating 𝗀𝗃𝗃 with 17 months. These are all
Kenya.
the super OGs, man. Love it, love it.
You guys
love
are the best part of the channel. We love you. We appreciate you. botanicacandlesandmore.com is up and running for all services and products. We do ship. The podcast, if you can't catch it on video, we're on all the major audio platforms, so please be sure to check it out.
Spotify, iHeartRadio, even
Yeah.
your Alexa. You can say, "Hey Alexa, play our Roots podcast." You know that even does that. So
And you'll hear these very silky voices. Be sure to like, comment, share it, subscribe, guys. Let somebody know about the membership program if they can find some value in it. Big thank you from all of us here at Our Roots Podcast, and until next time, see the light.